Okay, love. So, welcome to today's episode of the Mystics Path podcast. I'm your host, Susie Hempstead, and I am so excited to drop into today's topic, which is a topic so close to my heart and literally changed my entire life. So, I am a walking testimonial of how incredible this practice is, and today I want to speak to you about meditation. Meditation completely changed my life, and it's changed the life of thousands of students who have been through my programs, my free challenges, my free offerings, meditations that I have across platforms like Insight Timer, YouTube. So it's a topic I'm super passionate about, and I want to dive into it with you today. So, as I've already said, meditation completely changed my life. But the crazy thing is that most people who try meditation quit before they ever experience the magic. They will share things with me like they tried it once or twice and it didn't work for them, or they think they're really bad at it, or they believe that their mind is just too busy and they can't stop their thoughts. So they actually stop the practice before the magic starts to begin. So, in this episode, I want to share with you why meditation is one of the most life-changing practices on the planet, what's actually happening in your brain, in your nervous system when you meditate, and why almost everyone has some kind of misconception around what meditation actually is. So, let's dive into the episode. So, I want to begin with my journey just to give you some context of, where I started and my belief system. So, I always thought meditating was weird. I thought it was like for Buddhist monks who lived in monasteries, and it was not something I was ever interested in. Then, when I did my yoga teacher training 10 years ago, we had one day in our training where we learned to meditate. Well, a meditation teacher came in, and I remember him teaching us walking meditation, chair meditation, and I think we just sat for a few minutes in meditation. And I was like, whatever, like didn't really connect with the practice, and that was that. And then after I completed, actually during my meditation teacher training and for the few months after that, 6 months after that, I was experiencing a lot of quite crippling anxiety, and I would experience waves of anxiety moving through my body quite regularly. And I just thought that was going to be it for the rest of my life. I had gone through a really big breakup of my childhood sweetheart. We'd been together for 10 years, and when we broke up, it really rocked me to my core, and I dropped into a very deep depression. I had really severe anxiety. I would have to pull the car over when I was driving because I was, about to have a panic attack, and my nervous system was completely shot. My mind was in overdrive with all of these really intense thoughts, and I literally just thought my life was over. And it was a very scary time for me as I moved through and transitioned through what I would call a dark night of the soul. And then it wasn't until my yoga teacher training before my yoga teacher training, but it took me a while to heal from that. I went on antidepressants, which is not something I would now do. But at the time, I knew that that was like a crutch that I needed to hold on to get better. And once I completed my yoga teacher training, I knew that it was time to make some big changes in my life. I was working in corporate. My life was very stressful. I had a stressful job. And India was calling me. The land of India was calling me. And all I wanted to do was just to go to an ashram in India. If you've seen Eat, Pray, Love, you'll know what I'm talking about. Julia Roberts does the same thing. She's just like, her life falls apart. She gets divorced from her husband. She ends up with this, in a very toxic relationship with a new guy. And then she's just like, I just need to go to India. That's how I felt. My nervous system was just so, was still on edge. And my body just needed to be on the land of India. So I had this calling to go to an ashram. Now, I'd never been to an ashram before, and I knew that in ashrams, they meditate for long periods of time. So I knew what I was getting myself into, but I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into. So I flew to India to this ashram. The plan was to stay for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying for 3 because I just dropped into the deepest levels of peace and calm that I'd ever felt in my life. And the anxiety that I had been experiencing for the last 18 months started to slowly dissolve. And by the time I left the ashram, like, I'd completely healed my anxiety, and I had worked through, shifted, and released so much that I was carrying. I literally felt probably the lightest I'd felt in years when I left that ashram. So the shift was just incredible, and I had been meditating for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening every day for 3 weeks at the ashram. And the meditation that we were taught was called japa meditation, which is a form of mantra meditation where you have beads, you have mala beads, and one by one you roll the mala bead and you chant a particular mantra. And I would chant the mantra Om, and there was 108 beads, so you'd go all the way around the mala till you reach the end point, and then you'd reverse. And you would just keep doing that until the hour was up, and then meditation was complete. And I did really struggle with the meditation practice in many ways. The first week was hell. It was really, really hard in so many ways. My body was so uncomfortable. I would have pins and needles. I was in pain. It was awful, you guys. And I really, just my body was not responding well to sitting for long periods of time. I also really struggled with the japa meditation, like reciting the mantra Om, for an hour every morning and evening. I found quite challenging. So my ego was really fighting that. And then also my shit was coming up to be looked at, because this can happen sometimes when you start to meditate, is you're creating this spaciousness for processing to happen. And when you're meditating, you are starting to drop from the conscious mind down into the subconscious, and that's where, a lot of stuff is just being held and needing to be brought up and processed. So it was pretty uncomfortable to sit with certain things and thoughts and beliefs and ways that I had moved through the world that I wasn't proud of. And that first week to 10 days was challenging. And once I'd moved through that initial time period, then I was able to drop into deep states of bliss, calm. The anxiety completely resided. My mind was clear. And I left, as I've already said, I left the ashram just feeling light, feeling happy, feeling on top of the world, and feeling like anything was possible for me in my life. So once I left the ashram, I then committed to myself, I'm going to meditate every single day for the next year. I was like, I am going to do that. I'm going to meditate every single day for the next year as a non-negotiable, and 20 minutes a day. So I committed to that. I did that. And throughout that year, I started to shift my practice, and I learned about mindfulness meditation, which is a Buddhist practice. So I started dropping more into mindfulness, which felt very good for me. And mindfulness is more about just observation of the thoughts. And because I'd been practicing for meditation for a while, what I started to notice was the space between the thoughts started to get much longer and longer. So with a mindfulness meditation, I was just able to sit in stillness and silence for long periods of time. And I know for some of you listening, you'll be like, I cannot even imagine that. My mind is so busy. How could I possibly be without thoughts? And I'm here to tell you that's entirely possible for every single person on the planet. And it will happen if you have a regular meditation practice. So that is, I guess, a little history of how I got started. And then I started teaching meditation. I was invited by a yoga studio owner to start a meditation course, and I was like, I've never taught meditation before, and she was just like, oh my gosh, you're just like so ready for that, you know. She'd been to my yoga classes and she just said, you'll be incredible. So I created a little program and I held, I think it was a 4 or 5 week program. And then from there, I started to build on more in-person programs. Eventually, when COVID happened, I created a 3-week program. And then in January 2021, I released the Meditation Academy, which is my signature 5-week meditation program. So that's a brief history of my journey with meditation. And I wanted to share with you something that always held me back from having a regular meditation practice or even wanting to meditate. And it's something that I hear from students all the time. And that is that meditation is about stopping your thoughts, or meditation is trying to stop your thoughts. This is the biggest myth ever, and it's the biggest block that I hear that stops people from meditating. Meditation is not trying to stop your thoughts. Your brain is a thought factory. Your brain is absolutely incredible, and it's designed to think. So telling the brain to stop thinking would be like saying to your heart, stop beating. Stop beating blood around the body. You just wouldn't do that. The heart's function is to pump blood. The brain's function is to think. So, meditation is not about stopping the thoughts. It's about changing your relationship to the thoughts you're having. So what I mean by this is meditation is sitting in observation of whatever is coming up in the mind. The good, the bad, the ugly, the uncomfortable, the blissful, everything. And just starting to become an observer of your thoughts. And what happens when we do this is if we're an observer of something, for example, if you're an observer of a dog on the road, or you're an observer of this glass bottle that I have in my hand, if you are an observer of something, you cannot be that thing, because you're observing it. So what is it that is observing the thoughts? So when you have this breakthrough or this moment of like, wow, if I'm observing my thoughts, the thoughts are not me, then this helps us to release, first of all, attachment to the thoughts being us. And secondly, can create this space that we can just observe without judgment. Of like, okay, this is not me. I'm just having this thought right now and I'm observing it. Okay? So meditation is not about having no thoughts. It's about no longer being controlled by your thoughts. Okay? If you can take anything away from this podcast episode, please let it be that. If you are sitting, closing your eyes and breathing, you are meditating, okay? And the thoughts will come and go, and that's perfect. And what you will start to find, and this is what I experienced, is over time, as you have more and more regular meditation practice, you'll be processing your thoughts in real time. And what will happen is when you drop into meditation, the space between your thoughts will get longer and longer and longer and longer. So what used to be like 2 seconds between thoughts, and you're like, my mind is so chatty, you might have like a 10-minute break between thoughts. That you have a thought and then you're just sat still with your eyes closed for 10 minutes. This is possible. Okay, so please remove this meditation myth from your mental capacity, from your mental load. Okay, so what's actually happening when we meditate? I know that people love to know the science behind things, and it is important to know the science behind things, like proven science, because when we understand the science of something and how it's actually impacting us, we're way more likely to do the thing if we know it's good for us. Okay? So, when we meditate, there is significant things happening in your brain and in your nervous system. So I'm just going to speak about those today. So there are many things that are happening in your brain when you meditate, but one of the things that I was speaking to is that it strengthens your prefrontal cortex. So this part of the brain that sits at the front, and this part of the brain supports you with decision making and focus. So through meditation, you are strengthening that. So if you're someone who has a high-powered job, or you need to make decisions quickly, or in your work, you really need to be able to just lock in and focus, a meditation practice is going to catapult you into a whole new level of focus and decision making. Meditation also reduces activity in the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is the part of the brain which governs fear and stress. So if you're meditating on a regular basis and you're reducing that activity, things aren't going to impact you in the way that they used to. An example of this is my mum and I started going to yoga. Oh my gosh, it was so long ago now, 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And we would go every single Sunday to a yoga class together. And yoga is a form of meditation. It's a movement meditation. And we would do a 90-minute practice just once a week. And after 3 months, my mum said to me, Susie, something really strange is happening for me at work. She said, I'm just not reacting in the way that I used to, and things that used to stress me out aren't stressing me out so much. And she said, the only thing that I've changed in my life is yoga. She said, I just go to yoga once a week with you. She said, nothing else has changed. So she said, I think it's the yoga practice. And of course, it was the yoga practice because of what was happening in her brain, this reduction in the activity in the amygdala. So she was just able to cope with stress, and she had a very high profile, stressful job. She was able to cope with that stress much better than she'd ever done before. And there are many other benefits to meditation from a scientific point of view. I'm actually going to go into these in a masterclass that I am holding on the 18th of March, all about meditation. So I'll speak about that at the end, but that link will be in the show notes, and there will be a replay for that. And my intention is to be running that same masterclass every Wednesday. So whenever you're listening to this episode, there will be the opportunity to join this masterclass where I will go into more detail around all the incredible benefits of meditation and the science behind it. So the other thing that meditation is going to support you with is your nervous system regulation. So meditation will shift you from being in the sympathetic nervous system, so this is fight or flight and stress mode, to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest, digest, and deep healing. Okay? And it's okay to be in the sympathetic nervous system, like from time to time, like we do need that alertness, or, in the gym, we want to be able to, lift weights or, run, whatever it is. So the sympathetic nervous system's not bad, but we don't want to be in that most of the time. We want to be in the parasympathetic state most of the time, which is where the body restores itself and moves through, as I said, rest and healing. And the more that we can be in the parasympathetic nervous system, we will be lowering our cortisol levels, so our stress levels, lowering anxiety, and having a much better way to regulate our emotions. Okay, so every time you meditate, you're dropping into the parasympathetic state through the stimulation of the vagus nerve. Okay, so there's brain changes happening and there's things happening to the nervous system as well when you meditate. So when you meditate, you're literally rewiring your brain, like changing the chemistry of your brain and like how your brain operates. And you're also dropping into rest and relaxation and supporting the body to heal. I'm actually being told if any of you have any like body things going on, any health things going on, a meditation practice is going to be very, very healing for you. Okay, and then that's the scientific benefits. As I said, I'll go into more detail on my free masterclass, so you can join that via the link in the show notes. But there are so many spiritual benefits of meditation. And obviously you're listening to the Mystics Path podcast, so this is all about spiritual expansion and expansion of consciousness. So in my experience, and the experience of so many of my clients who've been through my programs, meditation opens us up to more of our psychic gifts. It fine-tunes our intuition. It supports us with our of being able to feel into energy, and it expands our consciousness. Okay, so it allows you to connect with higher wisdom, your higher self, your soul, receive the most divine intuitive messages to support you with your life, and will bring so much clarity to your life from this connection with the deepest part of you, your true self. So if you want to expand yourself spiritually, meditation is just the absolute, what do I want to say here? The absolute goat. That is the goat to support you in expansion of consciousness. So to start to round up and close out today's episode, I just want to remind you that meditation is literally a superpower that we all have access to, and it's free, right? Once you know how to do it, once you have a sustainable practice, once you know what works for you, you can literally drop into this every single day for the rest of your life and change your physiology and expand your consciousness beyond what you thought was possible. So this is why I'm so passionate about teaching people to meditate. You know, just investing that in yourself of like, okay, I'm going to learn everything that I possibly can in terms of all these different tools, all these different ways that I can support my nervous system, because life is full of ups and downs, and we do need these tools to be able to function and move through the world as a regulated human. So yeah, this is why I'm so passionate about this topic. And honestly, my soul feels on fire right now, knowing that I'm bringing this back into the world again, because my work, you know, I always flow with the energy with my work. And if I'm feeling guided to hold mystic mentorships, then that's where my energy will go, or spiritual business support for female entrepreneurs wanting to build online businesses. And right now, my guides are just like, this is what the world needs. And it's making my heart so happy to be bringing through this this work. So I would love you to join us for my free masterclass, where I go into a little bit more detail around meditation. I share, you know, my journey, and I share more of the science and the different forms of meditation. And in this masterclass, I also go into a lot more detail around the Meditation Academy, which is my signature 5-week program, who it's for, what's included, the different modules, and why it's such a transformational experience. People have been through this program and had life-changing results. So It feels really, really good to be bringing this back through into the world right now. I'm in the process of re-recording all of the content. I'm going to be redoing the meditations, bringing them up to absolute gold standards so that it's just the best of the best of the best. So the link to the masterclass is below. If you are able to make it on the 18th of March for that first live experience, then I would love to see you there. And then I will be running it every Wednesday. So I'll be running that live every Wednesday, and you can join the Meditation Academy at any point in time, and I will support you and hold you with the community to build a meditation practice you absolutely love. So the link is in the show notes if you want to join that. If you have any questions about meditation, please drop me a DM or send an email through to support@susiehempstead.com. I love receiving your questions. It really helps me to create content that's going to support more people just like you who have the same questions. And also it helps me to bring through episodes and topics on the podcast. And again, help more people. So thank you so much, love, for tuning into this episode. I love you so much. And until next time, I will speak to you soon.